Good afternoon, everybody. I feel like I haven't done a breastfeeding class video in a while. And my sister was inspiring me with all the videos as I was putting them out. And maybe that's kind of like why I haven't put one out in a week, maybe. It's just because she hasn't had any issues. I think the last issue that she had was the video that I did about changing sides. But what I did think I would talk about, because I did notice that pretty much every time that her baby, whenever they would go through the growth spurts and the cluster feeding, she would have some questions. So I thought I would do a video on growth spurts and cluster feeding, just so you kind of like understand what those are. And she did ask the question, why does skin to skin help with milk production? So I thought I could answer that question as well. So I'm actually going to answer that question first. And the reason being is because the skin to skin is actually a great thing to do during growth spurts and cluster feeding. And the reason being, okay, so skin to skin, we especially recommend it the first 4 weeks, just because that's about how long it takes to get your milk supply established. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't lose milk supply, or that you can't have a reduction after that, but usually by about 4 weeks is when you establish your milk supply, and you're also establishing how much milk your breast can hold as well. So usually we recommend the skin to skin a lot in that first few weeks, because the baby is learning to breastfeed and you're learning to breastfeed, and we need that milk production. We need to make sure that we get that up so that by that 4-week mark, you have a good milk production, and you have a good milk holding capacity, I guess, is the other important thing. So you hear a lot of the skin to skin, I feel like, more, in that newborn stage. Okay, so her baby is leaving the 8-week mark and moving into the 3rd month, and they're getting older, and you probably won't hear a lot of skin to skin at that point. And the only time I would recommend, skin to skin is always good. And at that point, I told her, you don't have to worry as much when you get into by that 3rd month, but always I think that skin to skin is good during growth spurts and cluster feeding. And the reason for it is babies tend to be very fussy during those periods. So skin to skin does a few things. It regulates their temperature, which they need as a newborn, but it also calms them, and it relaxes them, and hearing your heartbeat, everything. It just has a way of relaxing their whole body, and just their emotions and their what's the word I'm trying to think of? For babies, they get overstimulated, so it just kind of like relaxes that brain stimulation, maybe being overstimulated. And so the skin to skin is very calming for the baby, and then for you, it produces hormones. When that baby is skin to skin, your body it produces hormones that just kind of like remind your body the baby is here, and it's actually the same hormones that produce and release milk. So that's one of the reasons why we say skin to skin. Another reason why we really talk about skin to skin and milk supply is because when you put your baby skin to skin and you let the baby be skin to skin with you, whenever the baby's hungry, they can just go to the breast on their own. Like, they don't have to try to tell you, and you don't have to try to find or look for their hungry cues, what they're telling you, when they're telling you they're hungry. They can just go whenever they're ready. It's there. And so that's one of the reasons skin to skin is so, so important, again, in those first, a few weeks. And I think it is important up to like 6 weeks. And I think once you get past 8 weeks, you'll start seeing less and less where you practice the skin to skin. But it is something to think about, like when the baby's having a growth spurt, especially because they've done studies where they do think babies are feeling a little bit of pain. We know our older children complain of pain when they go through growth spurts. So they're thinking babies could also feel a little bit of pain, and they just want to be held during that time. So I just think skin to skin would be really, really easier for you because the baby's just there. Your hands are free. You can get things done, and the baby can breastfeed at the same time. And there are ways to do that. You just kind of have to look it up and find ways so that you can hold the baby skin to skin, having your hands free, and the baby can nurse whenever they need to. And that's great for cluster feeding and great for growth spurts, because then you don't feel like you're literally maybe just sitting down constantly, because you will. So that's what we're going to talk about, growth spurts and cluster feeding. They're the same in the sense that the baby is pretty much going to act the same. They're going to feed, it seems like, the whole day. But what they're doing is two things. They're regulating your milk supply, so they're bringing that milk supply up, and they're growing. And so we want them to, have the growth spurts, because we want that's that milk regulating, natural milk regulation. And it also helps them sleep more at night. And we don't realize that that's what's happening. So cluster feeding, though, I notice, especially around 3 months, tends to happen a lot in the evening. And during the evening, somewhere around, I don't know, it could be as early as 3, but I want to say somewhere around like 4, 5, 6-ish, up till 11, and they're feeding just constantly. Just seems like that's all you're doing is feeding. But then they give you a good long night's sleep. And that could be just 4 hours, but compared to every hour, every 2 hours, that's what cluster feeding does. It kind of like they're building their self up for that longer sleep. So just kind of just understand that growth spurts and cluster feeds, the baby acts the same. And typically, it could be for 2 reasons. It could be milk regulation. It could be just the fact that they're going to, preparing to sleep longer for you a little later at night. So they're kind of like building that storage in their stomach. And as they get older, you won't see that as much. Growth spurts usually tend to stop at around 6 months, and 3 months is a really big growth spurt usually, and 6 months is a really big growth spurt, but you still get them in between, especially by that 3-month mark. You're still going to get them every 2 weeks up until that 3 months, and then it tends to taper down some, and around the 6-month mark you'll notice a big one. And skin to skin is good because it releases the hormones of milk production, and you will see already a natural decline in milk, your milk supply around 6 months. That's normal, but sometimes it can decline too much for baby, like too fast. So skin to skin can help, just kind of like maybe you can build that back up. Try to allow the baby to cluster feed, and try not to interrupt their cluster feeding or their growth spurts. Just try, if I know sometimes it's impossible, but try to allow them those days, because that's going to help your milk supply. People who say nursing is easy and natural, it's not easy. It is natural, but it's not something that that comes natural. You have to learn it. But it is natural. It is the natural food, and it is for the baby, but you still have to learn it. So you're doing a great job. If you've gotten, no matter how far you get, it's not easy, but don't give up, and it is very, very rewarding in the end. And no matter how long you choose to do it, feel proud of yourself that you did it, because it is not easy. It is not easy. And anybody who says that it is, it is not. Now, I'm not saying that some people can't. There are just some people that it just comes easy. But most of us, it's not. It's a lot of work. And I just want to tell you and commend you moms out there who get, no matter where you're at in your breastfeeding goals or, you know, relationship or how old the baby is, you know, I commend you, and just do not give up. If you need help, email me, comment below. I will respond. You can go to my Facebook page. I respond. I will help you as much as I can, and also reach out to the resources you have in your area. Also, take a look at my video where I talk about your overnight breastfeeding kit for the hospital when a baby's born, and maybe if you know anybody who is pregnant and might be something they're interested in having, they can comment below or email me as well. So I hope that helps a little bit. I didn't want to go on and on and on about it. I wanted it to be simple. It is normal. Expect it. It can be every hour. It's all day. It's just, you know, and I just wanted to make it that simple. There's really nothing, you know, hard. It's just milk regulation and growing, and we need it. So try your best to get through it, and just let everybody know it's going to be a bad day. So you're just going to have to deal with it. It's hard when you have toddlers or older children, and it's hard when it goes into 2 days, because it can start like in the middle of a day or the end of a day and go into the next day and feel like 2 days. So you got to just try to push through it. I know it's hard. So, and let me just end with this. Sometimes you need a break. Sometimes you need to take a moment and say, you know what? I'm going to pump, and I'm going to let somebody else feed. I need a break for a couple of hours. That's fine. That's fine. Every now and then, you need that. You do it. It's important. In fact, that's what's going to help you stay strong enough to continue, if that's what it takes. So I hope that helps, and keep watching, and don't forget to subscribe, and I will talk to you guys again soon in my next video.